Welcome to Furen University Self-Learning Courses. This is Sherry in Vancouver, BC, Canada again. It has been 3 months since I've been in this area, and I wanted to share an overview of the few places I've visited and the events that took place. In between the new cities and the events, I'll also share some aspects of cultural adjustments that is the focus for this semester's topics, so stay tuned. First, let's look at a few environmental initiatives. Here are some pictures of EV or electric vehicles with its charging stations. Making these charging stations available throughout the city is one way to reduce reliance on the fossil fuel. The other initiative is car sharing. For those who don't want to buy a car, but need it for occasional trips to groceries or work, car sharing is another sustainable model that's been in place in Vancouver since 1997. A 2018 study showed that Vancouver is the largest car-sharing city in North America, with the majority of the users under age 40. And while you're watching this video production in November, you might still remember that from September 20th to 27th, a series of global climate strikes have taken place during this time, some of which continues to this day. Across Canada, 278 demonstrations were organized on that one day. In Vancouver, an estimated 100,000 people showed up for the global climate strike event. Can you recall if there were any similar strikes happening in Taiwan? Victoria, which is British Columbia's capital and the largest city in Vancouver Island, had roughly 20,000 people showed up for the climate protest. To get a feel of the population difference with Taiwan, I like how a blogger who lived in Vancouver Island and Taiwan compares it. For every 1 person you see in Vancouver Island, there's 29 people in Taiwan. So, if you see there's 10 people lining up in Vancouver Island to a restaurant, think that there will be 290 people in the same line for that restaurant in Taiwan. Now we're back in Vancouver downtown, where Taiwan Fest took place at the end of summer vacation. As we travel through these images, I cannot help but think about culture, and the phrase culture shock came to mind. It was actually coined by the Canadian anthropologist Kaleidoscopic, born in Canada to Finnish parents. Standing here where Taiwanese culture scenes meets the Canadian, I think of how cultural interaction is like a river that flows on a bed of rocks, where we get the occasional bumps from those rocks, but the river continues its flow no matter what. What you're looking at now is Fraser River, a river that helped shape the early histories of settlers who came to the western provinces of Canada in the 1850s. This is home to now the city of New Westminster, which is about 40 minutes train ride from downtown Vancouver. New Westminster used to be the capital city in the 1850s in British Columbia when gold mining was booming. Because of this, and its proximity to the Fraser River, much of the commercial activities revolved transporting resources to and from this region, making this a popular port city with a deep-rooted blue-collar culture. Speaking of cultures, here's another perspective from the Canadian anthropologist Aubert. Besides giving us the term culture shock, he also developed another theory that has been morphed into a cultural adaptation curve. Most of the time, we feel the culture shock when we encounter cultural practices that's different from the ones we're used to. But for some of us, it is still possible to feel some kind of culture shock if, for example, you just moved from a small town surrounded by nature to a much bigger city with crowded population in the same country. The changes in the geographical and human landscape can be jarring when we lose our usual sense of connection with the place and the community we're in. In Aubert's cultural adaptation curve, he mentioned 4 stages of cultural adjustments. Honeymoon, where one is filled with excitement in the new culture. hostility, where one finds challenges of relating to the locals and starts to miss home, humor, begin to accept the challenges and start opening up and exploring the local culture more patiently, and at-home stage, where you begin to feel a bit more comfortable being in the new cultural landscape. When traversing through the different stages of cultural adjustments, belonging to a community is at the heart of how we can receive support from others as we meet the challenges of adapting to a new place. We now stand inside a public market in New Westminster, and I find the image of a public market symbolizes community, a place that provides for our daily necessities but also offers comfort, support, and strength to moving forward. We're now on a SkyTrain ride from New Westminster to Vancouver, where we've had a glimpse of Victoria, Vancouver's Taiwan Fest, New Westminster, the climate change strikes, and the local environmental initiatives. A short ride with a medley of snapshots of the region and living through the stages of adjusting to new cultures and places at the back of our minds. Before the end of this ride, I'll leave you with a quote. Change is the only thing that never changes. Thank you for watching again. Take care.